We're Animaniacs, and we're zany to the max.
So just sit back and relax, you'll laugh till you collapse.
We're Animaniacs! Unfortunately, today we're not reviewing Animaniacs, although that would be awesome.
Yes, it would be.
Instead, we're going to review something very far from Animaniacs, but still has two of the main voice actors from it. Of course, we are referring to...
Rob Paulson and Tress MacNeille.
Starring in...
Cinderella 2, Dreams Come True.
My dreams didn't come true. If they were, they wouldn't have made this piece of crap.
Granted. And it wouldn't have bankrupted a Japanese subsidiary of Disney either.
Although it's surprising considering how I don't think it bankrupted them. I think because the movie made actually quite a lot of money. It made $120 million.
For only being made with $5 million, that's actually impressive.
Very. Honestly, very impressive, I guess. They achieved what they wanted to achieve. Make money. Feed the mouse. Make money.
That's what Cinderella 1 did, and this did the exact same thing.
Cinderella 1, however, the first one, the focus was on the art producing something good and which in turn produced something profitable. This movie is obviously a attempt to grub some extra cash.
Produced in about 2001 with a 2002 release. It was a direct-to-video movie, so it never went to theaters. Well, why does it have a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes?
Well, Rotten Tomatoes, the way it reviews things is it goes through and it takes the positive reviews versus the negative reviews and generates a percentage in that manner. So the percentage is how many reviews were positive. And since it got no positive reviews, it stands at a rare 0%. Like, it's not so bad it's good, it's just bland.
Once again, this feels like the type of movie you might make fun of, simply because there are so many cliches it feels like they're following every single trope in the TV trope manual.
And that's another thing, TV tropes. This does not feel like a feature-length film. Rather, it feels like a clumsily edited, slapped-together TV series that was rejected from being on Toon Disney. Like, honestly, it's pretty bad.
Does it deserve the 0%, though?
Let's find out. So, first, let's talk about the story here.
It's just 3 vignettes stuck together by the fact that there's mice trying to make a book for Cinderella. You remember the mice from the first movie? Well, they're living in the castle now for some reason. Even though they live in the castle and are protected by Cinderella, there's still a cat trying to kill them, and any people who see them try and kill them.
Yeah, the cat's name is Pom Pom, because if you thought Lucifer was annoying, by the way, here's another cat that has even less personality and even less funny expressions than Lucifer. And if you're wondering why didn't they just use Lucifer, the answer is that he died. But...
Cats always land on their feet, right?
I think... Cat's always on their feet, I guess. I guess he survived the fall. Oh yeah, and another problem with the movie. It tends to go through those Tom and Jerry tropes that got a little bit annoying in the first Cinderella movie, but was innocent enough for kids. It provided some decent comedy for the kids, and the adults could just kind of roll their eyes and sit through it. There's an entire sketch devoted to it. And... yeah.
And that, the entire movie's devoted to it. The whole plot of the film is that the mice want to make a book for Cinderella. What are they, her children?
That would explain a lot, but that is awkward. Either way you slice it, the mice were good in the Cinderella movie because they weren't the focus. They were a little bit of something to entertain the kids, kind of like jangling keys in front of kids. But here, they're a little bit more of the focus. Like that female mouse who was in Cinderella 2, the one who said leave the sewing to the women, you know?
She said it, I didn't.
She has a name. Her name is Mary, apparently. I guess they needed a generic name that they just came up with, like, off the top of their head.
And Minnie was taken.
That's true. And I guess Dot would be a little bit...
Too on the nose?
Just a little. But
Jock.
he's apparently he and this Mary Mouse apparently have a thing that
Was never referred to in the first
comes out
one.
of nowhere, I guess. The plot demands it,
The plot demands it.
so therefore it is done. The Jack character, I am not opposed to his character, but just the amount of cliches it goes through. Let's go through some of the cliches. I think they're worth addressing. So what do we got? I'll start. The grass is greener on the other side cliche.
If I become someone else, I will be able to get what I want, cliche.
The love at first sight cliche.
Ooh. That's not Jack particularly. Isn't that the woman's fault more than his?
Oh, no. I'm talking about the Anastasia and the baker scene.
Oh yeah, by the way, you remember that ugly stepsister named Anastasia?
Well, apparently she's a main character now. Because she falls in love with the baker, and boy is it awkward. And, okay. So, funny scene, one of the funniest scenes in the movie. I laughed my head off.
No, Mother. You're wrong. He's sweet,
She's wonderful.
he's romantic, and we are going to the ball together.
Just staring, and then all of a sudden you're defending him in front of Lady Tremaine. I mean, honestly, what's that?
Defending him to your domineering mother, who, by the way, is still not dead.
Nope. In addition to that, the mother, you remember how Lady Tremaine sounded all dignified in the first Cinderella movie?
Not so much this time.
No. She looks a lot less intimidating. The animation, what's the animation here? I mean, you get the nice handcrafted animation of the original, and here it just looks like they used some cell drawings with a splash of Microsoft Paint.
All of the problems that were present in the first one are present again in this one, except not only have they become worse over time, it actually is a detriment to the entire film.
It is. The backgrounds, for example. They're not as detailed, they're not as beautiful, and they're not as descriptive as they were in the original Cinderella.
Even when there's a scene given right on a silver platter to them where they reference the idea of Cinderella and the prince's true love in relation to the baker and Anastasia, all we get is blue-purple background, and then it changes slightly here.
Like, yeah, the prince and Cinderella turn into Baker and Anastasia, and I thought they were trying to get across, like, the fact of the true love story and how they're trying to kind of rehash that idea, but it really comes off as very half-baked, underdone, and jarring.
One of the most interesting things about this whole film is the fact that the third segment tries to focus on Anastasia as a character, where she's trying to find true love like Cinderella did. Just hauntingly beautiful moment where Anastasia just kind of is dreaming about true love while listening to this very simple melody on a music box is really quite something. I don't really even care whether this is intentional or unintentional. It's unintentionally quite beautiful.
In a way, it kind of is. I mean, if the entire film was about, say, Anastasia trying to fall in love with this baker, and Cinderella helping out with that, or even Cinderella adapting to palace life, or to being married, or even getting to know the prince, I feel like if they stuck with one consistent story, it would have made a much better movie.
Yeah.
But instead, it comes off as a half-baked TV show that makes zero sense at all.
And the unfortunate thing is, I really feel like there are a lot of good ideas, concepts at work here. The idea that Cinderella is a hardworking individual forced to be in a position where she's not able to make all of her own decisions, but then that immediately goes out the door when she just starts making decisions because she's a princess and she can overrule anything with royal authority. The idea, the seed of the idea is there and yet never watered.
The execution, you never get to see it kind of flower. And it's just so sad to me to see something with so much promise and something that could be good, something that could answer the questions of, well, what happens after happy ever after? It could have answered that question beautifully, concisely, amazingly, but it fails to deliver. And that is the biggest crime that this movie commits. it doesn't deliver on that. It falls flat.
Well, the real problem holding this film back is the fact that they never really change the characters or story. It's the fact that the story and characters are still very much the same as they were at the end of Cinderella, except
They're static characters.
very much so, which...
There's no dynamic characters. There's nobody that changes. There's nobody that comes off as better. It's just mindless entertainment, really. There's not really any teaching of morals. It's more like forcing morals down your throat. And even then, the morals are kind of half-assed. I mean, like, it's just not there.
Which is really unfortunate, I think, because the animation, while it isn't as beautiful or as brilliant as the original one, isn't that bad either. It just kind of falls somewhere in the middle where there is some decent animation, plus a couple of obvious 3D models that the cell shading is obviously on top of. But honestly, the real thing keeping it back is the fact that these characters have become their own cliche, and they never do anything to shake that. These characters were archetypes to start off with. Even in the original Cinderella, that's why we ranked character pretty much the lowest, is because it was a plot-driven movie. These characters are archetypes meant to serve the plot. And unfortunately, more of that is present, except this came out in 2002. A time when, 50 years after, all of these cliches have taken on a different life. They've become something to avoid, something to make fun of, something to play with.
So it really doesn't hold up when they do it. And like, speaking of rankings, let's get into that. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about in terms of this movie. I mean, it doesn't really have much of a plot to speak of. Let's start with the story. Let's talk about the story.
It's three vignettes connected by the mice making a book. But really, when you think about it, Cinderella lived all of these stories already, so all of the stories are told in flashback, which means that this book is purposeless. I mean, yes, it's a very nice gift, a very thoughtful gift for the mice to give her, but is that really an excuse for re-talking about everything that we already just all experienced last week?
And in addition to that, you also have I'm not against anthologies, not at all. What I'm against is if these anthologies don't advance the plot, change the character, or link together to drive any sort of change or new idea, or have some kind of intrinsic entertainment value beyond, here's the story, So honestly, the story aspect, we ranked it a
20 out of 100. It's not the worst thing ever. I mean, it is a coherent plot, at the very least.
3 coherent plots, but none of them link. But at least it has something. And so that's kind of how the story, it's just the way the story is. And the characters suffer even more because you have to go with either one of two approaches. You either let the story make the character, or you let the character make the story. If one of them suffers, the other will suffer inevitably. In that case, we ranked the characters 15 out of 100. That's the best we could give them. Because the characters are static, they never change, they're not dynamic enough. Any changes that do happen pretty instantly, and they aren't original.
I am very sad that they don't give more time to these characters, because honestly, because all of these characters are their own archetype, their own cliche, breaking that mold is a very good idea, but unfortunately, it's never given enough time or development to really make them a character. I mean, yes, it's very interesting to see Anastasia, the stepsister, become her own woman, separate from her domineering mother, but unfortunately, it's never given enough time or believability.
But what about the sound of music? The hills are alive
with the sound of music?
Music?
Pardon me. The original Cinderella had very timeless music. In fact, we rated it highest because it actually got a whole bunch of Academy Award nominations for its great timeless music and sound.
Among the great timeless music sounds was the song Bippity Boppity Boo.
Yes, perhaps we could rehash it?
honestly, they're gonna techno it. Oh gosh, guys. Filmmaking 101. If you're gonna make music if you're gonna rehash a timeless music, first of all, don't rehash it. Second of all, if you are gonna use it again, use it right. I mean, like, I'm not gonna say that you can't update the music or you can't try to make it more modern or put it again or even satirize it, but this? Really?
And that's not even to mention the fact that they repeat the song 3 times in every other song, which...
The mice, singing it again.
Fairy Godmother singing it again.
Just no.
No.
It's just, the music just doesn't work here. And
The pop songs feel completely out of place. They don't really help the plot either, as far as I can tell.
they don't add. They detract. And, yeah, I just... Something that was so good in the original and just crashes and burns here. It's just so sad. So, the score we gave it was...
30 out of 100.
And if a music box is your best foot forward, you're doing something wrong. So 30 out of 100. I guess all that's really left to say is kind of the animation and the overall quality. So like the animation, it's okay, it's serviceable, you know.
Honestly, it is the best thing about this, despite the dating of the 3D models and despite the fact that it's not as good as the original one. It's still worth 45 out of 100. This is not bad animation. It's not like something like Dalmatians 3 where the terribleness of it makes it fun to watch because you can point out all of the...
You can point and laugh.
Yeah.
Like one of those jerky kids in like elementary school, you know.
Yep. But there isn't even that distinction here. All of it is smooth running, so there's not even the ability to make fun of the animation. So once the music and the characters and the plot drive you to actually nitpick with the animation, and there's not that much to nitpick with, it means that the animation is still good, but unfortunately, because the story, the characters, and the music is... all of it is just so terrible that the animation is good in comparison and you can't even nitpick it.
Even then, when you notice like problems with characters and story and such, it becomes your view. If everything else is terrible, your view of the animation and of like the quality of the way it looks and everything, your view of it drops because like say if the animation's terrible, automatically the sound seems less good to you because you're more annoyed, you know?
Because the characters and story are so not there. And the music is beyond words, and that the animation was just okay. We had to give it an overall score of... Honestly, overall quality, we had to give it a 40 out of 100 because, honestly, it doesn't really deserve the 0% on Rotten Tomatoes that it gets. I mean, I understand why it's there, but...
It's not the worst movie ever. Like, I've seen some worse ones. But it's just, I think its biggest crime is that it's not good, but it's not laughably, hilariously bad either. You know what I mean? It's bland. It's blander than stale bread. It's just bland. It's boring. It's a waste of time.
And unfortunately, because there is so much promise in the first and third sequence... The fact that neither of them really ever delivers, and on top of that, the characters and story just aren't there, means that overall, it's only average 30 out of 100. It really fails because there are the seeds of a good idea there, but unfortunately, none of them are watered. None of them are brought up to life.
They're cast into the wayside, you know.
It's like a garden you never watered.
And you expect things to grow out of it. And I guess it grew a lot of money. I mean, 120 million is nothing to sneeze at. You put 5 million in, 120 million out. It's not bad. But it was a critical flop. commercially, it worked. Critically, it did not. But with this, we're going to say
Skip it. Avoid it.
avoid.
It's not even worth watching once. There are seeds of a promising concept that never get watered, which means it's not even worth watching once because there's not enough good animation to even carry that.
It doesn't add anything. It won't add anything to your experience. The original is good enough. This is not worth seeing. So that's kind of the way that is. And of course,
Tress MacNeille is Dot from the original Animaniacs, and she's honestly the best part of this movie, which is very unfortunate, but honestly, she does a good job with what little she has of a script to work with. And honestly,
those are good voice actors. And yeah. So I guess that's pretty much all we have to say about this movie. I mean, yeah. It's not great.
it's not even good, unfortunately.
And I wish it was, but well, that's how you have it. All right.
Besides which, we can't give this a positive review because that would take away the rarity of having a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. And we
and that
can't
would be
have
tragic.
that. Oh, that'd
be a travesty.
Mm.
Anyway, so this is Pragmus Alpha,
I am Pragmus Omega.
and we're out.